The night will burn bright when a hero steps forward to quell the world's chaos.
Hello people. I'm Cow Slayer, Monster Hunter and Chaos Slayer aficionado, and this is my full review of Long Fallen Dynasty. First of all, I will keep all this spoiler-less, focusing only on the mechanics of the game. Gameplay will only belong to the first 4 acts of the game, and I will avoid showing the most surprising boss fights. My objective of this video is to explain as in depth as possible about the gameplay of this game whenever you have played or not a nioh-like game before. Also trying to offer useful hints on how to get through the game without not too suffering. Nioh-like refers to the games developed by Team Ninja that share a lot of design approaches and take them away from the Soul games. The current nioh-likes games are Nioh 1 and 2, Stranger of Paradise, and now Wulong. There are 4 major aspects that clearly define a nioh-like game: mid-fight stance swapping, the loot system, the game structured based on missions, and finally the deeper endgame. Let's start. The first and most important is what I call stance combat in honor of the system in Nioh 1. By stance I mean that you are encouraged, although not obligated, to swap weapons or fighting style mid-fight. In Nioh this was based on stances where for every weapon you had 3 stances for light, medium or heavy attacks. In Stranger of Paradise was even more complex, and with one button you basically changed your character class and your whole equipment, so you played like 2 characters at once. Here in Wulong this has been hella simplified. You only get 1 stance per weapon class with just 1 light combo and 2 heavy attacks, one if done by itself, another if you use it after a light attack. This is quite more similar than a Soul game. Your weapon also can come with up to 2 special attacks called martial arts. What adds complexity to this and rewards the player who is willing to use it is what they call counter-strike parry. By a button combination you will use a parry that also switches your weapon and produces an attack, a 3-in-1. Since you can have 2 weapons at once, this means you can have 2 kinds of movesets available, so instead of playing with just 1 combo, 1 heavy attack and 2 specials, you have 2 combos, 2 heavy attacks and 4 specials. That is much more that you have available in a Soul game. This allows you, by example, to have a quick long-range spear for dealing with the cannon fodder enemies and a slow hard-hitting glaive for breaking bosses. Even if you don't want weapons types, having 2 weapons of the same type and switching them allows you to double your special moves. The smartest players will enchant their weapons with 2 different elements, so if they face an enemy who is strong against their element, you can switch to the element that beats it. This makes me talk about the elements, leveling up, and the spellcasting. This game uses the traditional Chinese theory of the elements represented by this graphic, where the arrows represent which element beats which one. This elemental system rules almost everything about the game, including how you level up. Instead of leveling up a stat such as strength, skill, vigor and such, we have the different elements. Each works a basic stat like more health, more equipment weight and less stamina used for attacking, deflecting or spellcasting. Notice there is no bonus attack damage stat in this game. Here every stat can be your primary or secondary damage stat. Their area also guardian spirits for every element that gives you passive effects by having them selected and have a gauge, then when full you can use it to either buff the whole party or unleash an attack. These attacks can turn the tide of a fight. Every weapon comes with scaling up to 3 elements, and because that you can primary level whatever stat you want, and you will not be penalized for it as long you don't go beyond the hard and soft caps that look like to be 10 and 40. The hard cap of 40 is for spellcasting. Your spellcasting is also based on the 5 elements, and you get a tree to unlock new spells that have a requirement based on your stat in that element. Every element has a collection of direct damage and buff spells. They also have a morale requirement that is something that I will talk about later. Besides stats, the last 2 rows of spells are capped and you must beat training missions to unlock them. Monsters and enemies like your armor have scores in the 5 elements, and that decides how much damage you will do or take from spells. You only can equip up to 4 spells at once, but a fantastic departure from other games Nioh and Souls is that spellcasting has no limits and you can use it as long as you have stamina, so a pure mage build is 100% viable. Just is not going to be too easy because of how the stamina system works here. In this game stamina is called spirit. It is a gauge below your health that can go to the left with a red color or to the right with a blue one. You go to the left by basically doing anything. Using a spell, performing a deflection or dodge, attacking with a martial art or a heavy attack, called spirit attack. The main and maybe only two ways I can think to gain positive spirit is to hit an enemy with a light attack or to deflect their attacks. When you have a positive blue spirit, your spirit attack will consume it all and deal extra health and spirit damage to your enemy. Yeah, enemies are subjected to the same rules of spirit as you, and against most enemies your win condition is not as much draining their health up front but to drain their spirits. When their spirit is empty, they will be winded for a couple seconds and you can do a finisher move that does big health damage but reset their spirit. Deflecting attacks and using martial attacks also can drain their stamina for a good deal. These actions also make their stamina shorter so they become easier to break. So avoiding taking stamina damage and dealing it is key to success in this game. When you get your stamina totally depleted, you are the one who ends up winded and helpless for several seconds. But if you counter a big attack or break your enemy and use the fatal strike move, your spirit will get resetted. So in this game there are two main strategies. One is playing it safe, guarding and deflecting attacks, and when you have a positive spirit, do a heavy attack to break them. The other is going up front using martial arts and spells and hope for the enemy to die before you run out of spirit, or if not, after spending it, go for light attacks to rep one it or wait for an attack to deflect. Or getting break. Your spirit is near broken, it will not recover naturally for a while. The second one is way more risky but offers a way higher damage output, and if you are able to break your enemy before they can do anything, you can even have an easier time where the enemy is just unable to do anything. And whatever of the two you do, guarding and deflecting is the key to victory, since it is both your main defense and the way you gain fuel for your spells and attacks. Defense is offense, offense is defense. Quicker attack weapons make it easier to sneak hits between your enemy's attacks and get extra spirit. Slower weapons hit harder and recover more but are harder to use without good use of the martial arts. This brings me to the second main departure from the Soul series, that is the weapons and armor system. First of all, your weapons use no weight at all. You can have two of the heaviest hammers around and still move as fast as bare-fisted. You can carry two melee weapons and two ranged ones. A big characteristic of the Nioh games is the loot system. They work more like Diablo than Soul. Once you get access to a weapon and armor piece, then every enemy from now can drop a copy. Each piece has a different rarity and strength level. Rarity comes in 4-star levels before you beat the game, and then you unlock a new 5 stars rarity. The strength is a positive number between +1 to +9. Every piece of equipment also comes with a random selection of special effects. In Wulong, like all Nioh-likes, the smith is a fundamental piece in the game. In Wulong it has been overly simplified and is a lot less grindy than before. First of all, upgrading your weapon and armor takes steel and leather of different grades. Each level takes the appropriate quality grade, and you can obtain adequate quantities of each by exploring the map for disassembling equipment. And there is a special armor attribute that allows you to upgrade these weapons and armor for free without gold, or upgrade items up to the cap of the chapter you are playing. Unless the old fusion system, here you aren't stupidly penalized for having a favorite weapon or armor. To add to this, getting outstanding weapons and armor of the max rarity before beating the game also involves zero randomness. You can summon companions on your missions, main and secondary. If you get them to the max level, they will give you a golden rarity copy of their set. Talking about sets, this works exactly like Nioh. Named armor pieces have a set bonus you get the more pieces you equip from 2 onwards. Most are armor and melee weapons, but you also can find some bows and accessories as part of the set. A nice optimization hint is that it doesn't matter if you don't really make use of the weapon, you can have it as the second weapon and mainly use the first one. Of course you miss out stuff like having 4 martial arts. This edge sets have over regular pieces of armor makes them the way to go, since the cap bonuses are a lot of extra health or spirit damage. These set weapons also come with unique special martial arts you only can find on those. And believe me, these are the way to beat the game. So basically, you make a friend, get their gear and upgrade them, and you are almost done. You still will want to get as much loot as possible and melt it because of the system for the special qualities. The embedment system allows you to remove any special effect from a weapon and replace it for another. Most effects are free to pick, you still have to pay from a list. There are limits in that you only can have one effect of each color, so don't allow you to pick everything extra attack. And then, rarely equipment can come with special gems you can extract from the piece. These have qualities like giving your weapon elemental damage that doubles as status effect, or things like extra damage whenever you drink a potion. These are still limited by the color like the others. So while you still have to find equipment with these gems, the wonder here is that once you get one, you can keep it forever and don't need to search for another again. Unless you want both weapons to be the same. All this cut downs the absurd grinding of the other Nioh series. Mid-game, when I started to struggle, I just got a nice glaive set, embedded damage on armor and weapons, and forgot about looking for equipment for the rest of the game. I can't express how good this new system is. The other source of grinding is the accessory. These sadly can't be gemmed. The only good thing is that you can use the pandas to get more. In the post-game, the grinding is more about finding 5 stars equipment. It is very rare on the early missions as expected. I had to duel Cao about 10 times to get one single 5 stars item. But as said, once you get it, you can custom and upgrade it freely. The other huge quality of life aspect of this game is that moving your stats around is unlimited and free. So you can either change your primary stat to fit any new weapon you find, or try new spells, or being a munchkin and change your primary spellcasting to the one that the next boss is weak against. The third main point is the game structure. Souls games are one big world map where everything happens in real time and the locations are physically connected. Nioh genre games, on the other side, are chapter and mission oriented. A mission is a snapshot in time and space. This has 2 big consequences. The first is that the narrative can spawn years and even generations, allowing for a more complex and cinematic narrative over the subtle puzzle nature of soul games where you must figure out the plot. The second is that you can replay missions at any time. One of the worst things of soul games is only being able to fight any boss once, since they become unavailable until the next cycle in your world. Here in Wulong, you can play and replay any mission even if it makes no sense that you are wearing the armor of the guy who was 10 years ago at the time. Exploration is also a lot more contained and takes away that feeling of discovering how to reach that place, but in Wulong, they have somehow fixed it and also solved one of the biggest problems of Souls games that I call boss rushing. Boss rushing is the practice of, when you have more or less knowledge of the game, to just dash as quickly as possible to the next boss, ignoring enemies and the map. In Wulong, this is avoided by a double mechanic: morale and fortification levels. Consider it a way to implement a level up system inside every single level. You start every main mission at morale level 0 and usually end at level 20. Every single enemy you encounter has also morale with the same numbers. When you fight an enemy with a bigger morale score than you will deal less damage and take more, and the opposite is also true. Morale is gained by basically playing the game well. Kill enemies and use finishers in them and it will rise. If you get hit by an enemy's special attack, it will decrease 1 point instead. And if you get killed, you will lose all your morale. Unless you have gained fortification levels. Every map has a series of flag posts. There are 2 types. One works like a Soul series bonfire, aka where you can save, rest and do other chores. The other only serves to raise your fortification and is usually found out of your way to the boss. When you place a flag, your fortification will rise to a number and your morale will never lower below that number. So flags are an important safeguard in case you get killed. And if this is your first Nioh-like or Soul-like, you will get killed a lot. Nothing at all stops you to ignore flags and go straight to the boss. There are even achievements for this and other crazy things like overcoming a level without using a weapon, but if you don't at least raise some fortification, you are in for a disaster in case you fail. If you get killed, you also can get back your morale and experience by killing the one who slayed you. Talking about experience, dying also takes away half of it. So this gives you an incentive to explore the whole map and kill lots of enemies even if you are replaying a mission. Besides flag points, exploring also allows you to find some collectives for NPCs or upgrades for your healing potion. This is a system totally stolen from the later Soul games. You start with only 3 uses of your healing potion and can get many more. In my walkthrough I got up to 10, which is more than enough. You also can upgrade how much health it recovers. Exploring also will make you find some cute bears, give them 1 item of a rarity and you will get back an accessory of the same rarity. This is good for recycling unwanted items. The main mission maps also get recycled into submissions that give you more lore, items or rewards. It is very recommended you do them all because you can find a lot of important stuff. Especially important are the missions where you duel against other main characters since they will drop their own equipment. So you can get their weapons with different martial arts or in the endgame the 5 stars version that is an upgrade from the 4 star that they give you when maxing their loyalty. The game is structured in 7 parts with several main missions each. I was able to clear the game in 30 hours because of my experience with Nioh games and because of all the quality of life features I explained before. In Nioh and Stranger of Paradise I found myself visiting the blacksmith after every mission to upgrade the items levels or fuse and stuff. Since all this is gone you can focus on playing and visiting the blacksmith just to upgrade the level every few missions. The last point I want to talk about in this video is about the endgame. When you beat the game, a new difficulty level gets unlocked. You can play the first 4 acts in this raised difficulty and get access to a new rarity of 5 stars for items. There is also a new kind of set bonuses named graces that can be only found on previously set less armors but only available on rarity 5 drops. These graces are a lot more powerful than regular set bonuses and the whole endgame revolves about finding the right combination of armor, weapon and grace. The most important departure over older Nioh games is that you can't upgrade your equipment power level at this point, neither if you find a 5-star item, +9 is the limit and this has fixed the problem old Nioh had. Before with the new difficulty you also raised your item level cap, so with good equipment and all the resources you have unlocked made the early missions much easier than playing the first time. Here you don't have that and this is really hard. To make things even harder, while your fortify still caps at 20, bosses can get to morale 25 so they are double hard. This is fine for me since that is the point of a post game. This game like all other Nioh has a season pass. Season passes always gives you the following stuff. A new harder difficulty. 1 to 2 new weapon types. New rarity of items and more grace set bonuses. An endless random dungeon mode hard as heck. If we don't get all those, I'm eating my hat. With all this the technical feature part of the review, let's talk about the plot and the encounters. I will not give details but you can leave now if you want to go totally blind. The plot of this game is as recycled from Nioh games as the rest of features. If Nioh was what would happen if there was magic yellow stones in the Sengoku period of Japan that turned the villains into demons and Wulong is what would happen if there was magic yellow elixir in the Three Kingdoms period of China that turned the villains into demons. It even recycles the main antagonist being a kind of wizard who is manipulating the evil warlords. If you have played any Nioh game you will get no surprises. I personally think this has the weakest plot of all 4 games. Including Stranger of Paradise that while campy at first has a very good payoff. Here your main character is a nobody who doesn't ever get a nickname like Chosen One, Sapphire Star or so on. He suffers from what I call the bystander syndrome in video games, where your character is just there in the cutscenes and her only actions are beating the crap out of those who need a beating. The plot is about the Third Kingdom's villains and heroes. Unlike in the other games, there is no any kind of real attachment between the militia soldier and any other of the characters. It makes you realize how good was Nioh 2 that has a very satisfying end and the DLC gave closure to your character. This is of course balanced with how cool the bosses and monsters are. The game has a good count of enemies so you will not get bored. Some of the bosses may return as elite enemies. My only complaint about some fights is that the game really loves a good gangbang and in one case gets really ridiculous and in another you fight 3 versus 1. Normally, you can use your allies to help but not in all missions and if you fail, the summon disappears. Still I have noticed these fights make the boss deal a bit less damage to compensate. Other than that I love the beast monsters designs. Lots of them wouldn't be out of place in Wild Hearts and I swear their designs are superior not being every single oversized animal with random plants attached. The big bosses are truly epic and no doubt the real protagonists in this game are the bosses. Lu Bu rocks. And this has gone long enough. I don't give scores but more a kind of buy, rent, game pass or pass. In this case the game is totally worth it because of how good the combat is and I know that with the season pass I don't going to complain about not being enough games. The second best option would be getting it for Game Pass, but if it is the only game you are interested in, it is not worth it because these games play the long game with the season pass, and by the time the third one releases you will have paid as much as the full game. Of course there are a lot of good games to play while it releases. The other buy warning is about the typical watch out if your PC can run it well and without glitches. I got some nasty slowdown in a section of the game with lighting bolts. Other than that, it ran well. To check if the game runs well on PC, try the demo. Heck, you guys, if you haven't played the demo, that is just a trial of the full game and your progress carries over. And this is all. Thanks for watching this review, and special thanks to Koei Tecmo for giving me a chance to get a review copy. Thank you all. See you in the hunt.